All right, Shauna, thank you. Two cars speeding side by side is what police say killed a passenger in a crash last week near Bermuda and Silverado Ranch. Today, Fox 5 is learning Jonathan Gallagher and Melissa Detlaff were behind the wheel when the cars crashed. After going through both their arrest reports, we learned the person who died was Detlaff's sister, who was the driver of a Mazda. The arrest report says Gallagher, who was driving a Chevy, and Detlaff were seen on surveillance cameras driving above 80 miles per hour before the crashing at the intersection of Silverado Ranch and Bermuda. Police say Metlaff showed signs of impairment, and both cars were racing.